Well, hello, everyone out in virtual land, wherever you are. I'm at my home in Portland, Oregon at the time. Very happy to be here and happy especially about the opportunity to talk to you about this subject, how to land a remote job. I work remotely. I have off and on many times during my career. It's something I know a fair bit about. And for the right person, the right fit, the right company, it's a wonderful thing. And I want to be able to give you a little bit of insight into, as a broad topic, how to land a remote job. So by way of background, I am the co-founder of the Tech Academy, along with my partner, Jack Stanley. I've been a working developer for many years, programmer since I was a young kid, and I've maintained my status as a working developer all the way through the creation of a prize going on in the industry, obviously in terms of technology trends, but also getting a job, what it's like out there, what's being asked, what do people look for, what are they not looking for, how has it changed? So got my finger on the pulse of that pretty well. And then at the school, we have an entire job place area that's all they do, and they're phenomenal. Anyway, let's get started with having a remote job. As an overview, we're going to cover a few different things here, which is going to cover, first of all, the idea of getting remote jobs early on in your career. What are the pluses and minuses to that kind of thing? What are the factors involved? And then just as regards remote jobs, we're going to cover where to find them, how to get them, and how to keep them, and leave you with some parting words on what to do now in terms of moving forward. So let's get started with remote jobs early in your career. Fair bit of information on this slide. We're just going to take our time. Now, I want to preface this with the idea that getting a remote job early in your career is actually usually not that good an idea. And sometimes that's a bit of a disappointment to people. They love the idea of being able to work remote. For many people, I totally understand. I love it. So I'll point out a few different things about it. And this is not 100% true all the time. But in general, getting a remote job early on in your career is not really a good idea for either side, for the employer or the employee. And you can see a couple notes here. I want to expand upon those. For the employer, it's sometimes a bit of a risk simply because you're not yet a known quantity. Obviously, that's true whenever someone hires you. But what I mean is they're going to contemplate hiring a developer with 10 or 15 years of experience in a remote capacity. It's a bit more of a stable thing than hiring someone that is new to the industry and wants to not be in the office. Now, again, this is not a hard and fast rule. You find all kinds of employment opportunities out there. There are fully 100% remote-only companies now, a decent number of them. But in general, for the employer, it's a bit of a gamble. Like, what is this guy or girl going to work out as in terms of a resource, ability to work with the team, knowledge levels, kind of thing. From the employer's point of view, they're bringing on a new person. They have an opportunity to teach that person the way they do business. How do we code? What is our architecture for our software applications? What are our coding standards and syntax preferences and different software they were used to using? There's a lot of tribal knowledge. It just gets imparted to you when you first start in a role. And particularly when they're bringing on a newbie, they're bringing on someone who's an entry-level developer, it's a pretty cool opportunity to basically mold you in the image they want you to be in, which is not a bad thing. It makes you more and more valuable to them because you know more and more of how they do business. And there's time involved in that. There's resources. There's, the efforts of others. Those things are more difficult when you're not in the office. So for the employer, it's a bit of we're going to do this with a new person. Again, it does happen. I'm not trying to, but it does. But now look at it from you. As attractive as a remote job can be, early in your career, from a certain point of view, you're actually penalizing yourself. You're robbing yourself of a really, really cool opportunity. And what that opportunity is something that you're going to really find valuable later on in your career. To, with your own eyes and ears, observe a technology workforce in action. What does it look like? I'll give you for example. When you're physically in the building and you have written some code, that's some sort of a feature or a fix to an existing application, there's going to be some sort of a process for moving that code through the various environments that it needs to be in, just in terms of what has to happen with it. Usually you're going to send it to an environment that's some sort of quality assurance, some sort of testing environment. And there's going to be some process involved in that. And this is, I don't want to rabbit hole of all of that. There's a lot we can talk there. But the point is, there might be some paperwork to fill out. There might be a person you need to talk to. There might need to be some sort of a development of what if the code that I push actually has a major fault and a bug and I have to revert. These contingencies need to be accounted for. And often you're going to interact with people in their environments. And it makes so much more real to you what's occurring when you're standing in front of that person. You're going to your QA person and you're saying, hey, we're about to push this change. It changes the user interface quite a bit. And I just want to let you know it's coming. And then when it comes over to their environment and you get some sort of like feedback, good or bad about it, there's something valuable walking over there and talking to the person and looking at the screen. And they're saying, look, this is what I usually see. Here's what I saw instead. And it kind of threw me for a loop. Is everything okay with this code you just put? Now, again, you do all the things virtually, but you might miss out on the opportunity to be right there. And you're having that conversation with that quality assurance or QA person. And all of a sudden, one of his compatriots or her compatriots, who's a couple of seats over, chimes in and has something really amazing to say that gives you more insight in what they're looking for, how they work, what their department is like, what's important to them. And you'd miss out on that. Now, these are not vital things. Again, none of these are hard and fast rules. You can get a remote job right at the beginning, but you are going to miss out on watching that team in action and being there in the building and seeing the data center, a bunch of servers on site, and security in action in terms of maintaining, protect the business's vital assets. And when you see all that and you watch it work, it just makes the business of what we do a lot easier to understand because you're seeing the actual physical mass of it. So that's just one drawback to getting a remote job early on in your career. Again, don't discount it fully. I just want you to think with that. The other one is a mentorship aspect. A lot of IT shops out there, development shops, will have either a formal or very often informal mentorship, especially for someone who's coming on, early in their career or has never worked for that company before. And there's just something about an in-person relationship there that can really, really help. You can walk over to the desk, sit down. They can, pair a program with you. They can just, think of something that happened like 5 years ago that somehow bears on the conversation you're having, and just walk over them and say, hey, Steve, you remember when we made that architectural decision to, this kind of on our web servers? What were we at the time? Why did we do that? These kind of conversations, they're not vital to do the job, but man, they add to the comprehensive nature of your understanding of the job, the company you're in, its history, especially as regards IT. You pick up on travel knowledge you can't pick up anywhere else. So these things are very important, especially during those first 1 or 2 jobs you have. At a certain point, 3, 4, 5 years in the industry or past that, you've seen enough that you can really put 2 and 2 together on an environment, a new company, a new team. Quick, not need that as much. But in those early years, it can be important. So like I said, with everything I pointed out, to get a remote job, early career, your first job, go for it. It's completely fine to go for it. Just know that it's pretty rare. It's happened. Someone recently landed a remote gig, and especially in the time that we're all dealing with right now, they landed a remote job where they're going to let him work remotely until the office opens. Because again, right now we're dealing in the time of coronavirus, and things are a little bit different for everyone. And we're going to touch on that again at the end. But those are some factors on considering whether you want to pursue or take a remote job early in your career. Now, where do you find these remote jobs? There are, of course, the usual specs. Indeed, Glassdoor, Dice, Monster, Stack Overflow, GitHub. There's a lot of conventional, these are the known job boards, Craigslist even, right? Often those platforms, those websites have some sort of a filter you can select or use keywords, look for things that are remote jobs, at-home jobs, virtual jobs, or WFH or work from home jobs. And even if they don't have it with the click of a button, you can often just leave the location you're searching for jobs in blank, use keywords that relate to remote jobs, like the ones in the bullet point above it. Literally, don't put down a C and just search for remote C#, remote or at home C# or virtual C# or work from home C# if you're looking for C# jobs, right? So things can help a lot. You can also just learn from others. Google, how did other people use that specific platform? Like finding remote jobs on Stack Overflow. Look that up, and believe me, there's going to be plenty of really great advice from people that went through the learning curve and decided to share that with the world. Thank goodness for Google. There are other areas, though, other sites that are either 100% only present remote work or have a really strong, core focus and make it very easy to do. One of the ones I've used many times is weworkremotely.com. Really like that place. It's great. They really present to you the newest jobs. If you got to be on top of it and just watch it pretty closely, but you can search deep in the past history of jobs and find some really, really cool opportunities. Also, Remote OK is excellent, and Authentic Jobs. But again, you can Google best places to find remote developer jobs or to work from home as a developer. You can find lots of opportunities. One thing I will say about these specialty boards, job boards that specialize in remote work, is there's a little more volatility in that sector of the World Wide Web. In other words, these job boards come and go with a little more regularity than docs that we mentioned for this Indeed, Dice, Glassdoor, Monster. Nothing lasts forever, but those job boards really aren't going anywhere, okay? Whereas, when I was looking for a remote job about 5 years ago, there were about 15 really excellent resources for finding remote jobs that just aren't around anymore. When I did the search again, putting together this presentation, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. Or the website's out there, but it hasn't been updated in 3 years, that kind of thing. So just know that you're going to have to work a little bit harder to find where remote jobs are listed if you're looking for the specialty websites. But it's worth it. You're going to find some gems. When I found We Work Remotely a few years ago, I was blown away, and they're still around, and I still use them. So one final thing about where to find remote jobs. You can make your own. And what I mean by that is you can always ask the company whether they would consider some remote work or 100%, but you can always ask. There's nothing wrong with it. In years past, it was viewed as an irresponsible thing, like, what's so special about you? You want to work remote, or maybe you just don't want to have the oversight of management there to make sure you do your job. That's an old school sort of viewpoint, and you encounter it sometimes, right? You need to be there to watch you and to make sure you're really going to be responsible and do your duties. But in this industry, especially in technology, it's so clear that somebody knows what they're doing and can code, really get the job done. They don't need to have someone breathing down your neck for it, right? So that attitude is falling away. You'll find instead that either the company really values those things I mentioned up here, not present during formative time at the company, not there to observe technology workforce in action. They know the value of those things. So you can ask, but if they're open to it, might 1 or 2 days a week. Work from home options is usually how that's phrased, right? That's it. It isn't 100%, but they'll allow some of it. That's also a good gradient to being able to be fully remote. If you've had a job and you're there for a year, 2 years, and 1 day a week you were, that's 20 of the time. Because you got 5 days of work to week, 5 days a week to work. So when you're getting ready to move on and you're looking for a fully remote job, you can present to them that you successfully worked remote 20% of the time at your job, and great, did fine. So there's nothing wrong with asking. All right, so let's move on. Now, how do you get the job? The first thing I want to stress, if you're a student at the Tech Academy, use us. We're here for you. Put Jack and I so much work in over the years to really cultivate an excellent job placement area or division of the organization. And we have great people there, really, really good people. In addition to that, we have a job placement course, something not all boot camps have. This is hard-won knowledge, folks. It really is. What are the successful actions to land a job, especially when you're completely new to the industry? These are not things you know automatically or be able to intuit. They are things we've learned over the years, and they're very, very valuable. So if you're on the boot camps that we teach, man, do that job placement course like your job depended on it, because in many cases it does. And please take the advice in those courses to heart and do the actual actions. As an example, just one minor thing. The amount of send communication in the form of emails, resumes, phone calls that you're going to need to do on a successful job search is usually far beyond what you think it is when you get started. And there's a lot we have to say in the job placement course about that factor. But when you get to that point in the job placement course, we mean it. We know what we're talking about. If, on a successful job search, you might send out 200 resumes. Not kidding. It's not hyper or exaggeration to kind of just make you think a little bit bigger than you normally do. It's true. It happens all the time. I'm a senior level developer. Been doing this for a long time. The last job I went ago, I had about 125 job leads that I was working off and on 2 months. I was looking for a very specific fit. So 25 job leads, and I probably sent out twice that number, never heard back on a lot of them. So the point is, it's just one piece of advice from that job placement course, and we mean it. And it comes from our own personal experience in either getting hired ourselves or helping hundreds and hundreds. So first thing about getting a remote job is the same thing we'd say to want to get any job. Use us. We're there for you. Okay, good. Now, remote jobs. You're going to want to get very, very good at phone interviews and or web conference interviews. Interviews and conversations where you're not physically in front of someone, and whether you either can't see them or you only see them on the screen, and it's not as easy to be able to get all those visual cues. This is going to be a really critical thing when it comes to getting a remote job. So practice it. Practice the phone interview. That really heavily. Grab someone else in the middle of a job search and literally just be in opposite rooms from each other, or you're in your house and she's in her house and you guys are on the phone, and practice these phone interviews to get really comfortable. If you mess up, take note of what you messed up on and drill it and practice it until you're comfortable with it. Phone interview is critical on these jobs. And it isn't just getting all the technical answers, it's how you present yourself. In last week's Tech Talk, one of the things I stressed pretty heavily is, and just in terms of getting hired, right? Don't interrupt people. Just don't do it. It's not okay. So this is especially important on the phone. Don't interrupt. One of the things about it is, if you've ticked them off, you're not going to know it. You're not going to get that visual cue and go, oh, wow, and backpedal, acknowledge the fact that you had a little bit of a social gaffe there and you probably shouldn't have done it. You're not going to see that. And so don't even commit the faux pas to begin with. Don't interrupt people. Use great communication. So there's a thing is, I'm spending a lot of time on this, but it's really important because they're not going to see you. So get good at phone interviews. Another thing, a good image on web conferences. Be clean shaven, well kept, decent background behind you, and pay attention to what they're going to see in the background. Make sure that the environment you're actually doing the web conference in is secure, and you're not going to have a pet walk in or a roommate walk in or a spouse or kids or whatever, right? Present a good image on web conferences. This is especially important during the interview process because I know it's a cliche. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. These things matter. So give thought to that. Worried about what it looks like, then have a friend and you do a web conference, having him give you advice on, comment and feedback on what they see and how you present yourself and that kind of thing. It might be that your microphone on your computer sucks and you don't know it because you haven't done very many web conferences. And you get on there with a friend and they hey, listen, you sound like you're underwater, and you have a chance to fix that. Go out, buy a decent little USB mic or something like that, and make sure that you present well on web conferences. This is important, right? Now, another point, you might actually not do the entire thing remote. You might be invited back to their office. Now, this is going to happen usually right towards the end of the hiring process or the beginning of you've got the job process. I'm going to tell you, for remote jobs, if you're not yet hired, if you haven't gotten the offer, but they're inviting you out to their facility, you've pretty much got the job. They're not going to go through that, especially for a remote job, if they're not really serious about hiring you. And if you really like the job, even if it involves travel, go there. It's worth it. Often they're going to foot the bill, which is another indication that they'd really like to hire you, right? But the point is, you might actually be invited to their offices, in which case, every bit of advice you get from our job placement course and just having some common sense would apply. Your demeanor, how you present yourself, your dress, all that kind of stuff, all that applies. So the reason I put this little point in here is that even though you are looking to get a job, recognize that it's incredibly likely that you're actually going to be on site in the presence of some of your coworkers at some point. And usually, like I said, it's near the end of the hiring process, or more likely right after you got hired. So there's that point. Now, this next point I want to make about getting a remote job just applies just in life. It applies to getting hired, and it especially applies to remote jobs. You've got to be tenacious. I made a point of talking about one aspect of our job placement course relating to how many resumes you need to send out, how many phone calls, how many emails. It's just fascinating. You have to be really tenacious. You really do. It takes a lot of work to get a tech job. And that's kind of an interesting thing. For those of you who are on this call or here in the future that aren't in technology, one of the things you hear about it is there's a big job, there's a worker shortage. There's a lot more jobs than there are people. And that's true. But that doesn't mean you automatically get a job if you can fog up a mirror. Far from it. One of the cool things about technology as an industry is it's got a really high level of professionalism in it. You don't have many slackers or people that won't pull their weight or people that aren't team players, or people are understandably very picky about who they let into their environments, especially in IT. So you're going to have to work hard to get the job. And nowhere is that more true than on one of these remote jobs. I gave you the figures of how many different job leads I was juggling all at once. And the same is going to be true. You're going to have to really push hard on it and be tenacious and follow up and not forget anybody, and be willing to be persistent without being annoying. And that it takes a fair bit of work, right? The final aspect of how to get the remote job is that you might have to do it in stages. You might have to build up remote work when you can. So your first job might be on site. Fine, whatever. The fact is, the vast majority of the people who get hired for their first technology job, almost all of them are in person, on site. Remote is very rare, although it does happen. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you can't do something about that, either while you're in school or on. Just do something as remote work, a side gig, helping some testing on a website. A friend of yours has something they need done technology-wise, or your church or some social activity they're affiliated with has some sort of need for technology work. Get those, secure those things, do them, and do it really good at them, and do them remotely, and put it on your resume. If you were paid or not for the technology work, did it. Absolutely be on your resume, and the fact that it was remote should be featured on your resume. Next job search that you're doing, when they ask if you've done remote work, you can say yes, because you have, because you did, you have the farsightedness to be able to those gigs. So, bit on how to get a remote job. Bear in mind, we're going to open this up to questions at the end. You can even throw questions in that now. I have no problem, but we'll probably go up at the end unless they appear to have some sort of urgency. So if this slide has inspired any questions, write them or put in chat, and we're going to get to them. Now, you've got the remote job. How do you keep it? So, first and foremost, I didn't even put it down as a bullet point. Do a good job as a developer. If you're going through one of our boot camps and you've learned how to think like a developer and the tenacity involved in solving coding problems, well, just do your job, do a good job of it. But there's some facets of it that apply to being. One of them is Put together a professional home office. Don't do your coding at your kitchen table. Don't do your work there. Yeah, every once in a while, you're going to grab your laptop and work wherever you fine, whatever. But have a designated workspace that you can control. If you got a big household, it needs to be a place that you can shut yourself off and be at work. Yes, it's really cool to be able to work remotely because your commute is 45 seconds and you can work in your pajamas or sweatpants or whatever. And the kids or the wife or the husband or whoever is right there. That's really cool. But the fact is, when you're working, and you need to have a physical environment that reflects that, just like you're at an office, and the fact that it's your house, said you have the short commute, to a certain extent, doesn't matter. So set up a professional home office and get nice. You're going to be there a lot. Get the monitors you like. Get the setup that you like. Have a nice, comfortable chair. Your ergonomic is important. So this is my first bit of advice. The second is that you're going to need to have a pretty high level of communication, just general. Maybe even a bit higher than you would when you're working in the building. And here's what I mean by that is, it isn't just that you can have a higher level of communication in the building. It's that when you're building, there's countless opportunities to communicate that you never even think of, don't take notice of. Obviously, there's a big old meeting, sort of a design for a piece of software, or you're the testing team or something. Fine, that's very clearly, obviously, communication. But the fact is, if you're in the building, you're communicating with people all day long in little ways you don't even think of. Those opportunities aren't when you are remote. And so for a lot of reasons, you need to positively make that communication happen. And there's a couple. I'm going to go down to the bottom one, the bottom bullet point here. One of the reasons to have a high level of communication isn't just from a technical aspect of doing your job. It's the fact that you need to be part of that team. A group is a created thing, and it's got to be continually created by the people that are in it. And when you're in a physical building, that's not that hard. It happens almost just by default of being in there in the building, doing your jobs, working together. But you need to do it as a self-originated thing when you're working remotely. And one of the most important things you can think with is, how much am I communicating with the rest of the team? Don't be a bother to them. It needs to be real, genuine communication. But just a couple emails here and there, or your daily stand-up, isn't always going to be enough. Reach out to the people you work with. Even if it's not work-related, just say hi. How are they doing? See if they need any help with anything, okay? Now, another aspect, though, to jump back up in these bullet points of how to keep your remote job. It's very important when you're working remotely to clarify your understanding of the story you're going to work on, of the exact bug that was found, kind of thing. Because you're not going to have, you're not going to have the visual cues that you do when you're in someone and talking with them. You're not going to catch things as easily. So it's doubly important to be able to communicate a lot, to clarify what they mean, make sure they understand what you mean, kind of thing. So another aspect of keeping a remote job, you've got to have a routine. You might be working for a place where they say, hey, listen, and it's going to happen more and more often as you get, senior, you're going to say, listen, we don't 100% care about your exact schedule as long as your work done. That sounds really cool, and it is. But if you yourself have a disciplined form to how you conduct your day-to-day work, it's all too easy for that to get away from you. It happens to the best of us because there are a lot of distractions. You might be on the other side of that door, or the dog needs a walk, or you want to talk to your wife or your husband, ever, right? And there's nothing wrong with those things. But you've got to have a way of just keeping your own personal discipline. And the best way to do that, I found, is just to have a structure. Make sure you get up at the same time. Make sure that you take your lunch at the same time. Make sure you end off at the same time, right? And obviously, you've got some flexibility. You're at home. But to the degree you keep that in, is the degree that you're creating your job and keeping yourself disciplined and doing a really, and being able to do a great job as a remote worker. Now, other thing on that is you're going to want to ask, hey, how can I get better at this? Because again, sometimes you're missing out on those visual cues. So you don't have the chance to just grab your boss in the hallway and say, hey, how am I doing? You know, just a little bit of casual feedback. Yeah, you might have a annual performance review and that kind of thing, but it's always nice to say, hey, listen, how did I do on that last project? I mean, I felt like I did a pretty decent job. I didn't get enough feedback from the end user. What do you think? You know, these kind of conversations, they're just going to come up naturally when you're in the building, and they're not natural when you're remote. So be overt, ask for feedback, and ask, how can I improve what I'm doing? So there's some notes on how to keep your remote job. Finally, let's move on to, what do you do now? So as I said earlier, if you really want to remote and you're new to the industry, it's all right. Go for it. Have a backup. So this is no different than the advice I give to people just on getting their first technology job in general. And the advice we've always given is, you're going to have what you consider the ideal job. And it might be, more or less fleshed out in your mind, depending upon who you are and that kind of, what your interests are. But the point is, as you're getting towards the end of your training, you're going to start to have a little bit of what you, and even a pretty strong idea of what you want as your first job. You're not always going to get it. You're not always going to have the opportunity to get that exact thing that you want with the exact location or the exact pay or the exact benefits or the exact team or the exact mentorship program or whatever in your first job in the industry. That will change as you get more and more experience. You have a little more clout to throw around, or a little more right to be able to expect, different things you're asking for. Although it's always give and take when you're getting hired, right? But the fact is, when you're getting that first job, sometimes you just need to get your foot in the door and get a technology job. Our experience at the school is, if you're a decent person and treat people kindly, after you've been in the industry 6 months to 18 months, shown that you can do the job, you're in, and you're in for life. And it's going to be pretty easy to get jobs from that point forward. But getting that first job, it's a challenge. So that's the advice we're giving to people, is like, it isn't a matter of like being willing to compromise your goals, but there's a certain amount of realism to it. If you get offered a halfway decent job as your first job, take it and make the best of it and do a really good job. And again, this isn't a dissertation on our job placement course and that aspect of it, but I'm bringing it up as a parallel. The same thing applies to getting a remote job. You might not get it the first time. And I'm just recommending, as a friend, be willing to acknowledge that that's more than likely what's going to happen. If you've got your heart dead set on getting a remote job, I don't know what to tell you. It's tough and it takes some work. It can happen, but it takes some work. It's a lot more likely you'll get a regular in-the-office job, and you'll need to do what we talked about in this presentation and work really hard to build up your own experience doing remote work. So I don't want to discourage you. Go for it. I never want to mess with somebody's dreams at all. We had a guy a few years back that he wanted to work for Disney. Disney. I mean, I love the guy. I know him. He's a personal friend. I was still a little bit like, okay, that's a high goal. And he did it. He wasn't even graduated from the program yet. This guy's is a pretty stellar individual. But the last thing I was going to do is rain on his parade or try to knock down his self-confidence. Again, I'm not in front of you, so I'm not seeing any of these visual cues. But if any of you have taken that the wrong way, kind of defeatist, or it rains on your parade a little bit, not my intention at all. You can accomplish great things. If you're a student at the school, you accomplish great things by enrolling and getting through this. It's a hard work. So don't let that stop you. It's totally okay to go for it. So if you don't get that remote job, but remote is really important to you, start to lay the groundwork. Go over this talk. Practice your phone interview skills. Set up a home office as if you're working remotely already. It'll make it easier, I guarantee you, to find side gigs that are remote. Find volunteer work that's remote, because you've got a place to operate off of. There's no barriers between you and instantly getting to. So set up an office, right? All these things make it a lot more real that you can smoothly become a remote worker. So that's what you can do to be able to move into that pretty easily. End of the official presentation on, go back to the very beginning here, how to land a job. I really want to open this any kind of questions. I'll stay on as long as you guys like, within reason, all afternoon, right? But I love answering questions. I love talking to you guys. So right now, Matthias, if you want to see if there's anybody who has questions, the floor is open to whatever anybody wants to ask. Whether it's on this talk or if you just ask me a question, it's totally fine.
Hey, awesome. Sounds good. We have one from Samantha Epling. Do you recommend looking for jobs with specific coding languages first, or general jobs with unknown coding languages?
I don't, you want to go somewhere in your wheelhouse, right? Something you feel comfortable with. I do know that part of the philosophy behind how we put the curriculum together with the Tech Academy is that you're well equipped with 5 or 6 broad categories of type of tool. You're going to know web technologies, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You're going to know database, cool, right? You're going to have a strong server-side object-oriented programming language like C# or like Python. You're going to have a scripting language just for writing scripts that can do batch processing or automated actions, whether it's JavaScript or Python, right? You have these categories of tools. And when you're looking for a job, when you get that first job, you're never going to find a job that matches every single one of those categories, or you're never going to find a job that matches in each categories to the example technology in the category that you've already learned. You might find a sharp job, but oddly enough, instead of using SQL Server like we teach at the school, they use MySQL. It's a different relational database management system, but guess what? It uses the same language. The user interface isn't that much different, and so you're going to be able to adapt to that. Same thing with the web technologies. You're going to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you're going to touch on some React as a front-end framework, but you might go to a job and they use Angular as a front-end framework. Well, the fact is, the HTML and CSS and JavaScript parts of that are the same. It's just that framework you'd have to learn. The thing is that as long as a good chunk of what's being used in that new job matches or is very, very close, you're going to be fine. Now, all of that exposition about how we formulated the curriculum and how it affects, an ideal match versus a realistic match on a job is part of the way I want to answer this question, which is you're going to want to look for jobs that are slightly in your wheelhouse in terms of job search and in terms of category of language and technology, but don't start there. Don't start with, well, I've got to find something that has all of these. I've got to find the perfect match. Just look for jobs that are, either physically in your area or involve just one of the things that you like. Like, for example, I would look for a C# job. Now, when I search for C# jobs, I'm going to find everything in there, because when the person's putting the job description together, they're going to list C# and they're going to list ASP.NET, which is a web application framework, and they're going to list Microsoft SQL Server, and of course they're going to list HTML, CSS, JavaScript, because no developer worth his or her salt today, isn't doing some sort of web development, right? They're going to list all of these things, but I started job search at least the language that I was strongest with. I wouldn't start with Java. I have very little, actual commercial experience with Java. Do I have any doubt about my ability to work on a Java project? No, none at all. In terms of syntax and its object-oriented, structure and design, it's not that different from Sharp. But man, I've up, 15 years experience with C# and all of its ins and outs, and I know its history. If someone throws me a project that was made 10 years ago in C#, that landscape looks like from having lived through it, right? I wouldn't have that same familiarity with Java. So I wouldn't start the search with Java, although I might find, let's say I looked for a job using the keyword JavaScript or SQL, there might be a job in there that among all the other technologies, it does involve some Java. Okay, fine. I'm not going to say no to applying to that. So that's a very long-winded kind of, relate a little bit of the background, we put our curriculum together. But as long as you have one or two of the things that you're decent at, look for that, but cast a wide net and look at the whole result set. Look at everything you get. Hope that helps.
Awesome. Samantha says thank you, and answers their question as well. I actually kind of wanted to piggyback off that. How did you kind of find that niche or find the thing that suits you best, and how did you approach exploring that and like coming across that language or that tool set that really, latches on with your style of coding?
Okay, that's a good question. That's fine. I've always Microsoft, and for a number of years that put me in, people made fun of me for that. Talking like back in the 80s, even earlier, Windows 3.1. I haven't had any problem with Microsoft for a long time. Now, those of you getting into the industry now may think it's a weird statement. Very few people, especially the development community, have much of a beef with Microsoft. You might hear a little bit about it. 10, 15 years ago, the developer community disparaged Microsoft at every turn. I'm just never that way. So when I'll tell you where it started is back in the late 90s when the first integrated development environments were coming along. Before that, when you wanted to write a program, you literally grab a text editor and you would type out your code, and then you'd grab a compiler and feed that text file into the compiler. It would compile it down into an executable, a program, and it would either throw errors because there was syntax wrong in your code, or it would run the program, and then you'd be able to figure out where inside this working program you have bugs, or maybe you didn't. Clunky thing. So when this integrated development environment came along, where on one screen you could see the code where you're writing your code, and it could even alert you ahead of time that maybe you made a syntax error, and the file structure of all the different files making up your overall program all laid out in one place, and all these other tools blew my mind. And the first example of that I saw, although there were some earlier, was Visual Basic from Microsoft. It's about 1997, a long time ago. I went, man, this is an amazing development. And it was clear to me that they gave a rip about the developer. They care about the developer's experience. And ever then, 23 years later, all that has done is gotten more and more and more true. When you look at the current tools for developers that come out of Microsoft, Visual Studio Code as a cross-platform, open source, code editor, and everything you can do with it, how accessible they've made all their online education, how good C# is as a language, which C# is their baby. It's been a no-brainer. I can code in anything, and so can you guys when you graduate from the school. You can learn how to code in any language. But I've always stayed in that ecosystem just because I really always felt like they care about the developer. And in recent years, that's never been more true. So that's a personal thing. I just grew up in the era of Microsoft.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, of course.
When you get a job, his first job, is the company gonna expect a lot from you, or just they know you have a limited knowledge about this, like some like Java or Python, any other languages?
Well, let me clarify the question. What you're saying, as an experienced developer, are they going to expect a lot from you? Like if it was me getting that job and they had some Java, is that what you're asking? Or you're asking if you're a junior developer?
Like for me now, I graduation from Tech Academy. I didn't have that experience that professional developer have. I think that the companies, they're not gonna expect a lot from you in the first when you get a job. That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's two different facets of this, and that's a good question, right? Yeah. Let's look at the case where some of the primary technologies or languages that they use are the things that you got trained in. For example, let's say you did our C#.NET bootcamp, and you've done a fair bit of, ASP.NET MVC work, which you do. when you go through our boot camp, right? And get a job, and they have a lot of projects, a lot of in-house software that uses MVC. Even then, they're not going to expect you to. I don't want to say this the wrong way. I was going to say they're not going to expect a lot out of you, but that isn't true. They're going to expect from you what an entry-level developer would be able to do. So, for example, on an existing MVC application, if they wanted to modify some sort of method that was in a controller for the MVC application, change some of the business logic, change the way a search filter works or something like that, they would expect you to be able to do that, because they're going to expect you to be able to run the application on your machine, break into the execution somewhere near the point where you need to make a change by putting a breakpoint, step through that until you find the point where you need to make the change, and figure out what logic needs to change. And you're going to change an already running system. It's a software application that's already built and deployed and being used. And it's, in fact, a method or function or whatever you're going to call it, depending on the language, that already exists and needs some slight modification. They're going to expect you to be able to do that kind of thing. But then again, that's what you do on the live project. And that's, in fact, what you do in your training on the Tech Academy. So that wouldn't be beyond you. What they're not going to expect you to do is consult on the architecture of a brand new application. Or if you're going to add a whole new set of features to that already existing application, to be part of designing how it works under the hood. What they are going to expect is, once the senior architects and developers have designed that, and have you take a stab at it, they'll almost always point out where something similar has already been done in the code, so you can use it as a jumping off point for understanding. But no, they're not expecting you to figure it all out. So the short answer to your question is, no, they're not going to expect a lot from you, but that's not a disparaging thing. They're going to expect from you what they would expect from an entry-level developer. And they're going to expect you as well to learn really fast, burn the midnight oil, and be paying attention and asking questions whenever you can to increase your knowledge. Does that help answer that?
Yes, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. What else we got?
All right, we have one from Tyler. Do you see remote work becoming more common, less common, or do you see it staying more or less the same?
Absolutely becoming more common. Obviously, we're dealing with the weirdness right now at the time we're recording this, because everybody's stuck in their homes for the most part. That's a short-term temporary anomaly. But it's in general, in terms of the industry itself, it goes up every year. And especially as the tools for remote work get more and more, powerful and stable, it happens more and more. So absolutely, it's going to be a greatly increasing, part of how we do what we do. And that's part of that is going to be driven by the fact that a lot of the training you can do, including at the Tech Academy, to become a developer is remote training. And during your training, you have to get used to that, what it's like to be a remote worker. Even if your job is student, you're doing it remotely. And especially when you get to the live project portion, if you're not in the physical building, and no one is right now, but if you're not in the physical building, man, you've got to figure out how to actually be part of that team and make sure you really understand your assignment. So we're not alone in that. There are a lot of other boot camps that are doing something similar to that. Of course, I'm very proud of what we do, right? It's in making remote workers. But the point is that even the way to break into the industry has changed over the last 7 years. There were no boot camps prior to 2012. Now there's a ton of them. And a lot of them feature some or all remote work. And so we're raising a generation of developers that are totally comfortable with that and have no back off on it and can work fine that way. So that, combined with like I said, the technology changes and the fact that companies are just getting more and more accepting of it, I think we're going to see it increase year over year over year for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. We have one from Ashton. So when you get a job as a junior dev, the company knows that you're going to experience a learning curve, and they expect that you're going to learn and adapt to the company's way of doing things. With a remote job, will you still be provided with resources for learning the same as though you were doing the job in person?
I don't think there's any difference between what's going to happen on that with an in-person or a remote job. It's a good question, but I haven't seen there be any difference. Every company is on some sort of gradient scale on how they onboard people and what kind of resources they give you. I worked at shops where they don't give you nothing. Just figure it all out on your own, sink or swim. That's how it is. And everybody who's there made it through. I worked at other places like IBM where they have a phenomenal onboarding process and, a little step, a whole wiki that has a step-by-step process of, how to actually come on board and how to increase your learning, right? So there's a whole gradient scale of that. And I've never seen any difference between remote and in-person on how a company treats that. It's the same either way.
Okay, very cool. And a question from Peregrine. Do you have recommendations for dealing with ageism?
First of all, great name. That's an awesome name, Peregrine. I like that. Yeah. If you encounter genuine ageism, how you handle it personally is like, it's a very personal matter. I'm telling you from me, from my heart, I would never work for that company. Just now, I found it to be extremely rare in this industry. One of the things that's really cool about this industry is it's a very pragmatic industry. Either you can code or you can't. And either you can get along with the rest of the team or you can't. Those are the things, honestly, those are the things that really actually matter the most. Okay. But if you do encounter that, yeah, you can fight your battle with them and report it up the line. And frankly, there's probably nothing wrong with reporting it because that kind of thing should be stamped on ruthlessly. It's disgusting. But here's the bigger picture on it. If they actually consider that important, they don't know what the hell they're doing technology-wise. If that actually matters to them, what kind of a shop are they going to run where they even care about that? Their priorities are all out of whack. I feel pretty strongly about this. Sorry for the HE double hockey sticks. But that's my personal feelings on the matter is just walk away with your head held high. There's nothing wrong with you and everything wrong with them if you genuinely encounter that. And if you want to report it, do so. Go for it. Absolutely. Raise a stink. But more importantly, don't let it slow you down on getting that job. Turn right around, get back on the horse, and go find someone that actually cares about the right things and will respect you for you and your ability to code and get along with people. The fact is, someone who's older brings more to the table. As long as they're willing to think for themselves and change their mind about things, they bring more to the table than a young man or a young woman. They've got all the experience of different environments and different business domains they've worked in, and they've had highs and the lows, and they've worked through adversity, and they got battle scars, and those things matter. That mental toughness matters. So there's my rant. I'll get off my soapbox now. I hope that helped.
Awesome. I have a question about.
I'll use my walker to get down off of my soapbox.
So yeah, really quick, one more question. It's kind of clearing up in the chat here. Excuse me one second.
Yep.
Trying to remember what my question actually was here.
That's fine. Take your time.
Any other questions while I'm still thinking about this? Okay, awesome. And I'll piggyback on this question once it's done. But the question is, what are the best ways to prepare for a remote interview?
Your physical environment matters. Have a calm, quiet place and make sure everyone around you knows that you have an important interview and that if they need anything, they better handle it then and not to bother you while it's going on. Control your environment, right? Secondly, be ready well ahead of time, 10, 15 minutes early, be sitting there, calm, look around your environment, make sure you're comfortable where you are, right? So those things matter. Make sure you've done your homework. Make sure you've researched who the company is, what they do, to whatever degree you can find out online or through your recruiter. If you're working with a recruiter, find out what's driving. And this is stuff we talked about in the Tech Talk last week. So for much more detail, review last week's Tech Talk, part 1 of 2 on getting a job. But make sure you've done your homework about the right. You're going to want to find out what you're interested in the company and have questions you're going to want to ask, right? Make sure you're well fed and that you good night's sleep the night before. Don't do this. Don't try to cram on whatever knowledge or coding you're going to get quizzed on and stay up till 3 in the morning the night before. It's foolish. You know what you know. Have confidence in yourself. Get a good night's sleep. Eat a good meal, and then be ready. And other than that, just recognize that they're not trying to quiz you about everything you know. They want to get to know you. So just take your time in the conversation. Don't feel like there's a 2-second quiet space in the conversation that everything's falling apart. Take your time to think before you answer a question, right? These are my pieces of advice for that. Hope that helps.
Awesome. And to follow up about my question earlier, what skills are you going to want to emphasize when you're in the interview for a remote position?
Soft skills, actually. You're going to want to be able to relate any stories you have or experience you have that communicates the fact that you communicate well, that you're going to take the time to understand a problem well before you just jump into action on it. You want to be able to present anything about you that shows that that you can be relied upon to get the job done because you care about doing a good job, not just because, well, I have a job to do and I have to serve out a specific number of hours. They're going to want to look for. They're going to want to see in you self-initiative, steadiness, reliability, and tenacity to to just work out what's going on with something, even when you face obstacles, because that's going to be even more important when you're remote. You're not going to be able to just step over to the next cubicle and say, hey, Bob, come look at this code I've got going on, So it's soft skills, right? In terms of technical ones, those are always going to be dependent on the job that you got, like the specific job you're looking for. So there's not a whole lot I'm going to say about that. Anyway, that's my advice on that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Also, Ashton has a question. Does the school still have ties to Hawaii? When I started, there was supposed to be a branch opening there. Hawaii is at the top of my list for my first job, despite the fact that it will clearly be difficult.
Hawaii is not on the immediate horizon. We may eventually have a campus out there, but certainly not in the next year or two. It was on the roadmap and still is on the roadmap for where we're going to put new campuses. But when it'll happen and its exact format is totally up in the air right now. And I just want to tell you, Ashton, I understand. I lived in Hawaii for a year. Loved it out there. It's expensive as all get out to live out there, but it's worth it. It's a wonderful place. But don't let that stop you. I mean, the fact is the skills needed to get a job apply anywhere. The tenacity involved, the specific soft skills and hard skills, they apply anywhere. And other than the fact that no one's allowed to fly into Hawaii right now, as we're speaking, I'm sure they're going to open the islands up again. And if you want a job out there, man, you can get one. I know you can. But the answer is no, not right now.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right, that's all we have for questions.
I got a personal question. What's Ashton's last name?
Just says Ashton M.
Okay. I think I've seen some of his success story, some of his good news stories being emailed out. I recall him.
Ashton Moore.
Yeah, favorably. Really good stuff.
Awesome.
Anyway. Anything else?
Chat's cleared up, so.
Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all who are still listening for coming to this. I appreciate it. I hope it helped. I just encourage you Um, above all, even with everything I said on here, if you have a goal, go for it. Dream big. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And for those of you who are Office fans, you'll recall that Michael Scott has a phenomenal quote, which is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. Just try. Don't ever stop yourself for what you care about. That's it. Thank you all.